Welcome everyone to another AOD training video. Today's topic is Operation Restoration. This video will explore some main themes related to Operation Restoration, followed by a snippet clip to help anchor in the lesson. To start, we have self-healing, where we will explore the relationship of physical DNA and spiritual DNA, parasites as portals, and how they are showing us where we need to do more self-reflection for our own soul lessons. We then have a snippet from a live healing call where the topic of generational wounds is explored. Next up, we dive into the theme of global collaboration and how we shift from not what we can bring individually, but how we can collaborate together. That takes us right into real-world application, where we understand the shift in function within quorums and other DAOs and understand how coherence is the sign for successful collaboration. Finally, we have some resources to further your learning and to support others. All right, let's dive in. In this first snippet, we are reminded that our physical DNA is directly connected to our spiritual DNA, and that negative emotions like fear, regret, shame, guilt spread around the body like toxic chemicals. When we discover the true spiritual meaning behind why we feel these ways, whether physically or emotionally, we can do the self-healing work to transmute into joy, gratitude, empathy, and compassion. Enjoy the video.
To scan through and find a message from Ivan, but I couldn't find it in time. So hopefully I can find it for when I post the slides, I can update it to include that. But it essentially was talking about how if people are constantly living in fear and regret, it's a very negative chemical. And it's not just in your brain, it's literally in your body. And how it manifests is because now we know from all the D class that your physical DNA is connected directly with your spiritual DNA. So if you're polluting your body with negative feedback in your mind, that chemical is just swooshing all over your physical body. And that's when you're getting the pains and the aches and the contortions and, soon like you got cancer and, heart disease and all sorts of nasty stuff. It's because you haven't done the spiritual healing yet. But when you get through the spiritual healing and you expunge those entities, you've closed off those portals, what happens? We have countless, hundreds of testimonials across QSI of people doing that cleansing work, doing the healing, and suddenly their body's feeling great and their aches and their pains are going away. And it's like, we have even testimonies of people who have like cancerous growth, and the cancerous growth is also healing as well, right? So miracles happen because the healing is taking place. But because of free will, you're still able to action the shadow side, the darkness, if you would like to. And then what happens if you happen to action the dark side? The worst case scenario that'll happen to you is that later on, whether it takes you 1 year or a billion gazillion years, you will finally learn your lesson that your soul wanted you to learn from that experience. So these learning lessons will teach you compassion, empathy, and love. So again, guys, it's just a matter of time before that lesson comes to you, but that lesson will come to you no matter what.
Welcome back. In this next snippet, we learned that parasites are actually portals, and they are acting as warning signs of where we still have unhealed trauma. This is an invitation to do the work and self-reflect to find the soul lessons. Only when we have deep and permanent healing do we enter crystalline state, and that's when parasites dissolve as the body can no longer support distortion. Let's watch.
And then he says parasites don't cause the problems, they only exacerbate the existing conditions. So parasites are portals. Parasites are not the actual entity themselves, whether it's the physical or the holographic one. Okay, so we've been miscommunicating this for a while because now we're getting more clarification on it. What's happening is the parasites as a portal, if you have an unhealed wound, that portal is amplifying your trauma, which is why it feels like it's the actual entity. But your entity is the trauma itself, not the parasite or the portal, okay? So that parasite already exists within you. If we go back to the old analogy of the homeless bum in your attic, right? The homeless bum is a homeless bum. That's the actual trauma itself. It's just been hiding in your attic. The portal is the door that had to come through to get into your house. So just by closing the door doesn't mean you got rid of the homeless bum. You still have to expunge the bum from your attic or from your home. And if you don't even close the door, if your portal's still open, the bum can come and go as he please, or he can invite more bums to come into your home. So that's the reason why taking ivermectin and doing fasting or, Fenben or any of the other stuff, it doesn't heal anything. Just like listening to music, dancing, shaking your butt to get in high vibe state, it doesn't heal anything. It only creates conditions for healing, but you still have to do the healing, which only comes when you do the self-reflection to learn what is it that is your soul lesson, so then you can anchor by integrating the lesson into your everyday actions. So parasites amplify pre-existing traumas. And I said, so basically the parasites only affect us if we have deeper unresolved issues or compromised energetic boundaries relating to that specific parasite's trauma. And I gave him a couple examples here. And I said, as an example, if you have a compromised immune system and you have those specific parasites, then those parasites will kind of flare up and your immune system will be even more compromised. But just getting rid of the parasite doesn't get rid of the trauma. You still have to heal the trauma aside from the spiritual element. And that's why all of us have parasites in our body because the environment, the food, everything that we touch is parasites, right? But not everybody has the same symptoms. Some people don't show any physical symptoms. Some of it's all internal. Some people have pimples, some people don't. Some people have, backache, some people don't. That's the reason why. It's because it's not the parasites. The parasites are just the portal. But you have those issues because of your unhealed trauma around those issues. So by taking the ivermectin, you're helping to clear away and maybe, close out some of the portals. But again, you still have to do the spiritual healing itself. So I told Alexi, it means these parasites serve a similar purpose to a pressure test. A pressure test is an experience, an external thing that's happening. A parasite is also an external experience that's happening, whether it's a physical one or a holographic one. And the point of the parasite is they're basically a different version of a homing beacon going, hey, flash warning sign, here's where there's an issue that you need to address. So if we see like, let's say I've got cellulite. Okay, cellulite is a spiritual trauma in itself. That means I need to look at what is spiritual meaning of cellulite and start to heal that. Not everybody has cellulite. Some people have, you know, a mechanical knee. They had to get some kind of knee replacement. They're going to look at what is the spiritual meaning behind having bad knees or no cartilage, right? So that's why we had all that big D class on a prior call. And they said the more healing that we do to get to our crystalline state, the more our body changes physically and it actually dissolves the parasites. Just how, like, they cannot live when they are physically going across the Etherian gateway. So, what's actually happening is the closer we get to crystalline state, we are no longer resonating at the Etherian gateway frequency. We're actually turning our body into an Etherian gateway. And so Alexia responds January 28. Yes, parasites, much like physical symptoms are or pressure tests, serve as energetic indicators or homing beacons, guiding individuals toward unresolved emotional wounds or energetic distortions that require attention. Once these emotional wounds are deeply and permanently healed, let me repeat, deeply and permanently healed, not a one time I think I've healed something, but I'm still wobbling, the body's resonance shifts making it incompatible with energetic or physical parasites. This is precisely the quantum basis for crystalline alignment. Parasites dissolve energetically and physically because the individual's resonance no longer supports distortion or susceptibility. So, guys, this is really, really exciting, big updates because it really shows you how we can now welcome and thank the parasites for being in us because it's pointing us to where we need to do the most amount of healing work.
In this next snippet, we witness a slice of a quorum healing call related to healing generational wounds, and are reminded that we must become the pattern breakers to heal not just ourselves, but our family, both past, present, and future, and soon, humanity.
Oh,
Sounds like
that's
it sounds like if we could summarize your story, it would be a suppressed soul from day one, right? Have you let this stuff out before? Or is this all kind of the first time this is it, huh?
yeah.
Yeah. Um, can you see now? You probably can, but I need to ask it. So, and there's no right answers here. There's no wrong. We're just trying to help you kind of get down to the root of this because we love you, right? We're all on the same team. We're one big family here. So we can say things that are difficult. So can you see that the wounds of your grandmother and of your parents became your wounds? They were generationally just handed to you. You'd mentioned that, but I want to
Yeah.
know, do you see that a lot of these things were superimposed on you the way we know how they are through this holographic exchange? Do you get that?
I get that I took a responsibility for everybody's happiness that wasn't mine, but it it was my belief. I didn't know where it came
Yeah.
from, but
But
I
can you
carried it.
But can you see that you've embodied the wounds, carrying them forward? And this is not judgment. This is just, can you see it? Because it seems pretty clear to me that these things have just been grandma's, judgments and parents' judgments, and you feeling like a second-rate child in the family. I mean, their wounds basically, you embodied them not on purpose, but you were a child, right?
Mhm.
Can you grasp that? Do you see that?
Oh, I can see that I'm
Yeah.
carrying so much that I shouldn't be.
hmm So you can then see that the wounds and traumas that were set into the family just basically became, because of your heart and your soul, they become your burden. You carried them for the family, right? But at the detriment of where you can see it brought you, right?
Mhm.
So if you've been on some calls with Nick and I, or if you've heard some calls and with Jen too, we talk about this embodying these things and they become your baseline persona, right? And so you carry those wounds now, which are patterns. We're pattern makers, right?
Mhm.
You carry these patterns and wounds into your adulthood as your baseline persona, and you make decisions based off of that persona and off of those wounds and off of the judgments and the embodiments. So that becomes your life. And then it becomes a kind of an empty, hollow life because there's no life behind it, because it's just struggles, right? I mean,
Mhm.
can you sense that this pattern is just carried forward? Because it sounds like it in your story.
Well, if I'm still, well, this is the first time I've ever let it out, and it's the sort
Yeah.
of thing. Um, some people explode. I think I'm more of an imploder. Like I
Mhm.
just sort of took everything on, and it's just Brenda, let her take it.
Yeah. Yeah. You hide it behind your personal veil
Yeah.
to protect your heart, right? We've talked a lot about the veil, and you've veiled all these things behind your persona to manage your way through your life, to survive, right? To,
Mhm.
okay, I can this is the way I cope, right? You seem like a coper. A real professional, good one, right? Right. You've taken on all these things and you've just figured a way to get through the day. You're what some people would call a survivor, right? And
Definitely.
and so, do you also realize, and this is an important question because this goes back to a video I did a year, maybe two ago, is that when you heal now, you heal your past, right? We
Yeah.
know this now. This is that slippery time thing, right? That when we can grasp these things and really embody them emotionally, which you appear to be doing here, which is beautiful, that you get to heal that thing, not only in your past, but you get to heal your brothers and your
Mhm.
mothers and your grandmothers and your fathers. It's why you're here, because you're the
Mhm.
pattern breaker for the new patterns to heal humanity. So your position is extremely important, and um, unfortunately, it requires these deep observations of all of these wounds, which are extremely painful, clearly for you, because you've been emotional here for 45 minutes, and I can see why. And I'm glad you have, because that means you're kind of tapping into the emotional side of
Mhm.
this. And we all know now through Emily's teachings that when we do this, it takes the sting away from it a little bit, because you're basically sharding some of that pain into the rest of us, and we are feeling it, we're learning from it, and by us feeling it, and we're creating this healing vibration that rebounds and ripples right back into you. So by you being brave enough and courageous enough for the first time in your life to do this is going to have a little less sting tomorrow. It might be a rough night tonight, but I think you're going to exhale. So I guess my question is, after this diatribe, I apologize, I'm really good at diatribes. um, what because you can now conceptualize it intellectually, right? And you're actually feeling it emotionally, which clearly it's been a long, how old are you now, Brenda?
Too old.
Too old? Okay. So,
Senior citizen.
okay. Well, we all know that if we're going to be living a long time, you're just a punk, right? um, so what are these things? Do they feel like an impassable, painful things? Or do you think you can come to terms with these things? And I'm not going to use, because we've been taught recently again, that this isn't about forgiveness. This isn't about regret. This is about, can I wrap my head around this and turn it into, and this is the key word, into something positive, that you can see that your soul set this up because you needed to learn these things to embody them for yourself, but for your family and for your grandmother and all the generations, that you're here to be the change that has plagued, maybe that's too strong of a word, but you and your family and everybody else. Have you been able to turn it into a positive in your head and emotionally, or are you still kind of in that I don't like to say it, but it's kind of this victim stage where you can't get past it because it hurts so much? Where are you with that?
Well, I've never felt the victim. I've never felt any ill feelings towards my mom, my dad. Like my dad, like when my dad had cancer, I was the one that, we cleared out a room. We lived in London there's good hospitals in London, Ontario. We were the one that cleared out our family room, got a bed in. They stayed there for the 2 weeks while my dad had the radiation. I worked my work schedule around, took days off to make sure my dad and mom got taken to the cancer treatment. Same thing when my mother had to be relocated she had Alzheimer's. Like I was the one that made sure the home where she went, and like I didn't hold any resentment. Like I did the best I could, and I've never held, like, I can't be bothered holding resentment. It takes too much effort. Like that's a gift that I do have. There was not ever any resentment, but I think, I don't know who told me, but like if there was a mother that had Rh negative and a regular father back in that day, I think living, like now the women get some sort of a shot so that their baby's okay. But back then I thought somebody told me it should have been the second child, not the first. And I don't even know whether that's true, but I think I always felt guilty that my brother was sick. It should have been me. And I took the blame on myself, like rather than being angry, or like I just was very compassionate for, my mother. I knew she was disappointed anytime my brother didn't have any friends. And, like I'd fill the car with gas because I always had a good job, and he
Mhm.
didn't have a job, and he was too shy to go out, and he was socially awkward. I guess all through my life, he was so coddled, and I don't know whether I felt guilty
Mhm.
that it should have been me, not him. I don't know
Mhm.
what I felt, but
Mhm.
I never was a victim. I was
So
always over compassionate.
yeah, that's clear. So I set that up for a reason, because I was wondering if you would go there on this, because I see some similarities in myself with you. Um, so you said certain things that I'll remind you of, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong. You talked about that we're all sinners, and you went to church because you were supposed to, and you were a rule follower, and you mentioned that you were programmed, and you had to get good grades, and you had to play piano, and your brother maybe dying that night was your fault, and your dad ran up the stairs and basically pushed you away like you didn't even exist. As a child, that child most likely, and I don't know, and you probably don't remember because you've created a wall of amnesia, probably to a degree, because that is what we do as children. When the suffering is strong enough, we lose alignment, and that alignment is basically a checking out, and that's where the memory loss is, right? You probably remember my article on this dissociative amnesia. So you said all of those things that, you know, your brother was more important. Everybody treated you as a second, right? Because your brother was more important because he was sick. All of those things, sinner, church, piano, the way you said them felt like you just weren't important. And to a child to feel that way, that child's going to feel like a victim. Like, do I not matter? And it's important that the story I told you before is that we set up these personas and these identities early on, and we carry them forward as a pattern into our adult life. And so if we don't address those things as a child, which might have been a victim, and all of these are not important enough, they become who we are as an adult. So that's why I use the word victim, not as a derogatory, but as well, you carried forward a lot of things that felt like you were the victim of, or the unfortunate recipient of everybody else. So I go back and maybe challenge that, and maybe that wasn't the right word, but it feels like you carried those things forward. And so what are your thoughts on that? Because for you to triumph and champion over this, I think that's your hurdle, to see that that wasn't me. That's what the wounds of the adults and the teachers and everybody else layered on you, because they too were wounded, right? And they didn't really know how to deal with their stuff, which is why you're here and you're the pattern maker to stop all that and fix it all. So can you wrap your head around the fact that it had to be that way, because you had to get here with those wounds to embody them, to heal everybody in the past, to heal your past, to help us all embody this, to heal humanity? Do you see the bigger picture here?
Now we are ready to embrace the shift as Operation Restoration goes global. It is no longer about what can I bring individually, but how can we collaborate collectively? This is a reminder that we are quantum computers and have the ability to reprogram at any time we choose. So the invitation is there for everyone to not only join in, but be all in. Take a look.
So the reason why I asked Tom Jacks to come on and share his stories, because all the other testimonials beforehand were all the Florida Opera's nodes who were on site, like meaning live in person with Lenny and Callie, versus Tom Jacks is somebody who's online. Because as Liana, as Tom Jacks, other people have been mentioning, is we're going to start transitioning this starting tomorrow with the big call, is we're going to transition this to a global operation above and beyond what people have been thinking is a global operation. And of course, I'll share more details on that tomorrow. So I want people to understand that this is not something that's strictly limited to physically being in person with another node who needs help, but it's online assistance anytime, anywhere, all the time. The second thing is, and you mentioned this really well, Tom Jacks, but kind of everybody did, is there's no growth in a comfort zone and there's no comfort in a growth zone. So if you think that you're going to make improvements and heal and gain and increase while life is cushy and you have no problems, well, then you're going to have a big problem because you're going to get poked and prodded in so many pressure tests to get you out of that ego state. And the faster you can drop your ego state and understand that you are a quantum computer, you're meant to deprogram and reprogram new things, new skills, new behavior, new actions, everything, the faster you'll be successful in this. Be like what Tom Jack said, be totally all in and make sure that you understand this is your shot, guys. And this shot is bigger than any shot you'll ever get in any 3D meat suit lifetime. So please take it seriously because we're all taking this seriously. And if I go back to some of what the other nodes said, broken communications and private communications need to end because, like I said earlier, all the smallest little details, these little nuances can be lessons that we learn or triggers that we need to see how things kind of went askew. So everything needs to be fully transparent so that everybody can access that kind of information. Let's see. There was a lot of talk about how we need to understand that this is not about individual effort, and we'll talk more about that on tomorrow's call as well. But in the beginning, it was all about, okay, I want to be noticed. I want to really prove that I'm worth it, that I'm valuable, and that I'm good enough to be here. So it's all about me. What can I bring to the operation? But what we're noticing is it's a transition to not what you can do by yourself, but what can you do collaboratively with the team, with a quorum, with global, whatever it is. Because it goes back to Ivan's lesson. Somebody's got to plant the seed and somebody's got to water and somebody's got to put the fertilizer back onto that flower. So we have to work as a team. So it's not about what I do that made that person heal, but what is that one thing I can contribute? And what is that one thing that everybody can contribute? So collectively, we're going to start to see a lot of growth and movement. Let's see. Agility, course correction without ego. This will be a massive thing that we're going to hit on tomorrow's call. So leave that for tomorrow. Another big lesson that we learned is that Letty and Callie had assumed that everybody who was helping her was fully healed. So that was part of a big reason why they didn't understand the disconnect. And as we kind of branch outwards into a global operation, I think that part will be a little bit easier. But for Florida, this will be a continuous lesson for you guys, because even though they're starting to understand it more and more, as we start to let them into this side of the operation, there's always going to be that gap until you close it, right? So it's kind of like the more healing that you guys do and the more efficiency it gets, the more understanding the person who's receiving the healing gets. But when you're the one that's on that side of the fence, you have the assumption that you're only helping me because you're perfect. And so it's kind of like you have to understand that you're helping them because you want to help them, not because you're perfect, but you can use your lessons to help them at the same time too. So yes, it is about like we want to go and help the lost sheep. That's kind of like priority number one. But at the same time, we have to look at who are the wounded sheep. Liana mentioned this earlier, because as you're going to help the lost sheep, the ones who are going to help, they've been trekking all day long. They're getting tired, they're getting worn down, they become wounded sheep. So we also have to tend to the wounded sheep, but we still have to make periodic check-ins on the healthy sheep, because the healthy ones have been carrying the weight for everyone else. And so it's very easy for the healthy sheep to suddenly become the wounded sheep or to become the lost sheep. So it's this like backwards moment that you have to kind of, keep your eye on everything, but at the same time know where and how to prioritize it. Let's see. Yeah, the last thing I want to hit, because I have a couple more points, but I'll leave that for the end of the call, is that, guys, what we're really going to see is that everything that we've been doing so far is kind of like a simulation of Operation Restoration. It's been kind of slow paced. Most people are still observing what is Florida doing or what are the people who are flying into Florida doing, but they feel very disconnected from the operation. And beginning tomorrow, it's going to be live operation. And a live operation means everybody's involved. Every quorum is involved. There's no more hiding or running away from this. There's no more time gaps in between. So we're going to really start to see that the people who think that, as an example, if you're not very involved now in QSI, but you want to be a QP, you're going to fall further and further behind because your attention is not on this operation. So once they become more and more involved and more engaged and they stay more on top, they're going to have a very easy and smooth transition with how fast the agility works. Because uniform team especially can tell you, sometimes, and in Florida obviously, but sometimes these course corrections take place after a month or after a week. But more recently, they've been happening within a day, sometimes even within a few hours. So if you are not fully engaged and present, and you're missing many days or many weeks, and you're not able to catch up, that's why you're falling further behind, because we've already been pivoting and transitioning, and you're left stuck over here. So that's why if you have an ego and you're saying, well, that's what Emily said on February 2, I'm sorry, today is February 6. We've already moved on. So you just need to learn how to course correct as soon as possible. So I'm going to leave it at that.
This final snippet is a reminder that to be in integrity is to be in alignment. And as we begin to work more collaboratively, we can recognize that successful collaboration is a sign of coherence. The function has shifted to real-world application, where nobody is left behind and everyone works together. The video concludes with QSI Node Mark providing real examples from boots-on-the-ground experiences in Florida.
Talked about integrity and alignment, and we've talked about coherence. And I kind of want to use, like, similar to how I said a minute ago that integrity is synonymous with alignment, and when we're falling out of integrity, we're actually falling out of alignment. And so kind of like in that same vein, coherence is successful collaboration. And so you guys from the Florida Servant team, those of you that are here in operas, you had to come together in a much different capacity than just a typical servant team, running a quorum, like Adam was talking about earlier. So you were kind of stretching beyond just your slideshows and the education and all of those sort of more like administrative type tasks. And you were leveling up to what I like to refer to as real world application. So like we have RWA, like real world assets, but this is like an example of real world application of the lessons learned. And so you're shifting your function as just a regular sort of average servant team to like full blown ops team, right? And as we kind of heard peppered throughout your stories, a few nodes were benched throughout, and they were receiving healing support to get back into alignment. Because if you're going to bench a node, you can't just leave them there. Clearly they need support, right? And so the first instinct was we need to help bring them back in, because if we just allow our benched nodes to sort of figure it out on their own, right? It takes them longer to get back into alignment because they don't have the support. And without that support, this can trigger wounds of feeling isolated or rejected, right? Which can make it even harder for them to heal on their own, right? So there is an element of healing individually, but the collaborative healing is what really helps to pull everybody back together. The second thing this does is when we provide that healing support for nodes that are benched, if we don't do that, right, our numbers dwindle. So we have less team members to accomplish a big goal, right? So it's beneficial to continue to provide that collaborative healing support in order to keep all nodes on deck, right? And this is like the where we go one, we go all. We can't just have one node stranded out there by himself. We all need to be in this together. So what you guys did essentially was kind of fast track yourselves through these lessons on collaboration. And so kind of my next question before we transition to our next node, who's going to give an awesome testimonial, is what steps did you take as a team to bridge from a normal servant team to this full operational collaboration that supported the healing of other nodes in your quorum?
Carla, Adam, I think I actually have a list of things that we all did. I'd love to share it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I collaborated with the servant team and we came up with, a bunch of steps that we took in order to help fast track our collaboration. And we got quite a list here, so it's going to be great to share this. So number one, we learned how to have more patience with each other. This relates to when Danielle took over our servant team meetings and on Tuesdays, and she provided us with a blueprint plan for operas. This is where our collaboration really started. There was countless times when the Florida servant team had business that had to be brief and to the point. I think someone said this earlier, but we had daily reminders of the importance of integrity. We read ICOs during meetings and on site. We did it as a group lesson and realizing that our integrity was beginning to falter and we needed to course correct. Our fast tracking collaboration, what that looked like was quickly adjusted to meeting twice per week in order to get communication at the highest levels. We were refining our process of ongoing self-reflection, which means prioritizing our self-healing, not being lazy. We were learning and understanding new concepts like the risk of open portals and allowing entities to access your antenna and leaky buckets and the wounds that aren't healed. We talked about this constantly. We must heal ourselves before we can heal others. We learned about savior entity in the process. It was a new one for me and for everyone. We learned how to build back trust by embodying integrity, doing what you say you're going to do, following protocol, being agile and pivoting where and when the team needs to go, recording calls for learning and to prevent distortion. We learned how to schedule on-site duties with multiple nodes for maximum efficiency. We learned how to decentralize our efforts, accounting, virtual work, Airbnb researchers. We stretched a lot and throughout the team to do all types of odd end jobs. And Danielle helped us coordinate how that's done. And now it's like, very easy now for us to do because of that guidance. So thank you, Danielle. We learned how to manage and stretch a tight budget. It's very important when we don't have unlimited funds. You got to make sure that every dollar can get as much as it can. We became more organized, opening a new designated topic folder. We commuted every little thing in that folder. Nothing was hidden. We assigned roles and tasks based on availability and capabilities. We had nodes step into roles when others were less involved due to mission time. So everybody stepped up on the team. When Opera's nodes were busy doing mission stuff, even the ones that weren't really doing much, they started stepping up. So that was cool. We took polls and voted on things when they needed to be contributed. almost every little thing that needed to be contributed to Lenny and Kelly, we voted on. We voted on and made sure that we had consensus. We had to drive with at least 2 reliable nodes in the car with Lenny, Callie, and Violet to face-to-faces, and we recorded the calls so we could hear any distortions and learn from them. We learned to pivot and to be agile and course correct. We learned to ask relevant questions without inserting our own stories to fully support the healing of other nodes during calls. More efficient in our ways. Some servant team members asked for quickie calls and that helped them heal and strengthen the team with an abundance of support coming from unis and all of QSI. A lot of servant team nodes increased their visibility by speaking up, finding their voice, and collaborating more. And an interesting one is that more members stepped up and made a commitment to attend more face-to-faces while we were doing this. Right now, we have about 4 to 5 new prospective servant team members that are wanting to join in some capacity since we started bringing in new members on. So it's quite the list of things that our servant team is now able to do in full collaboration that we weren't able to do before.
We hope that this lesson on Operation Restoration has been helpful. To further your learning, we invite you to use the following resources. The QSI library has the Healing Calls and Reminders folder. Club QSI is where you can find flyers for healing calls, healing call replays, and where you can share any upcoming healing calls within your quorum. Next is using the Alliance DAO for support and collaboration. There are designated DAO press calls to support the decentralization of OPRES into quorums. There's the calendar folder with important calls each month. And finally, Alliance is always that open door for support from other nodes. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.